Canada sees itself and is seen by others as a nation of tolerance. We are a peaceful, multicultural country. The most glaring blemish on the Canadian historic record relates to our treatment of First Nations that lived here at the time of colonization. An initial period of cooperative interreliance grounded in norms of equality and mutual dependence, described eloquently by John Ralston Saul in his book, A Fair Country, was supplanted in the 19th century by the ethos of exclusion and cultural annihilation. Early laws forbade treaty Indians from leaving allocated reservations. Starvation and disease were rampant. Indians were denied the right to vote. Religious and social traditions like potlatch and sundance were outlawed. Children were taken from their parents and sent away to residential schools, where they were forbidden to speak their own languages, forced to wear white men's clothing, forced to observe Christian religious practices, and sometimes subjected to sexual abuse. The objective was, and I quote from Sir John A. Macdonald, our revered forefather, "Take the Indian out of the child," end quote, and thus solve what was referred to as the Indian problem. Indianness was not to be tolerated, rather it must be eliminated. In the buzzword of the day, assimilation. In the language of the 21st century, cultural genocide. 3 lessons emerge from the Canadian experience with tolerance and intolerance. The first lesson is this: intolerance, the marginalization of difference, doesn't work. It may seem to provide a solution short term, but in the long run, it will fail. The second lesson is that intolerance imposes inhumane and unacceptable costs in terms of human suffering, human dignity, and lost human and economic potential. The third lesson is that the way forward is not to use intolerance to try in a vain attempt to eliminate difference, but to embrace tolerance in the spirit of reconciliation. These lessons from Canadian experience are replicated wherever intolerance has been systematically imposed. From the Nazi attempts to eliminate Jews, gypsies, and homosexuals, to the apartheid of South Africa, to the genocide of Rwanda, the lessons are always the same. Intolerance doesn't work and imposes enormous and unacceptable costs.